We've got to uh, reconvene the closed session, and City Attorney Lyon will report out on the closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I need to announce that under item 1A, my firm is recused on that matter due to a potential conflict of interest, so I did not attend that one, and your city manager will do the report out on item 1A.
On item 1A, direction was given, no reportable action.
And for item 1B and item 2, the direction was given, no reportable action taken on those items. Thank you.
Great. And with that, we adjourn the closed session meeting. And now I get to call the regular meeting December 5th, 2018 to order. As a courtesy to others, please silence your cell phones during the meeting or turn yours off like I have and engage in conversations outside the chambers. And the city clerk has an announcement.
If you are here to speak under public comments or on a particular item on the agenda, please fill out a request to speak card and turn it in to the Deputy City Clerk standing here to my right. The cards are located near the doors at the back of the chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spriggs?
Here.
Councilmember Patton?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem West?
Here.
Mayor Dedina?
Present.
Councilmember Bragg is absent.
Great. And with that, I am so pleased that we have Kiani Dawes, a sixth grader from Berry School, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And according to her teacher, and Kiani, you can come up, I'm just going to say a few words about you. Kiani is a role model student and a natural leader. Her leadership skills and contributions have made an immeasurable impact on the overall learning experience of the entire class. She helps support other students reach their fullest potential. We are so grateful for Kiani's presence at Berry Elementary. We're all better learners and citizens by being around her. I want to thank her father and her family to be with her. I really appreciate that. And as I told you, I was at Berry from 2nd to 4th grade, so I'm very excited. We have Berry alum, we have Berry students here. So please rise.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. As I said, you guys don't have to hang out. Have a great evening, okay? And drive safely home. Thanks.
You guys want a picture there?
We did. We are. Oh, Mark, it's already been taken care of. Thanks.
He's famous, you know.
Okay. Yeah. And now we have council's disclosure reports on assignments and committees, and I'll start with Councilmember Spriggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief. Last week, I attended the League of California Cities League Leaders workshop. It was held in Los Angeles from Wednesday through Friday. And I was there because I was at the time, this year's chair of the League of California Cities Coastal Cities Group, 61 cities all along the coast of California on those various seafront issues. One of my objectives there was to make sure that one of the 4 goals that the League was going to adopt for the forthcoming year would include resiliency of cities to deal with climate change and related issues. Sort of a broad issue that allows the work of the coastal cities to have a place in the policy work of the League of California Cities. And luckily they did adopt such a, one of their 4 goals was along those lines. I've since just today got notice I was appointed chair of the coastal cities for another year as well. So that'll help us keep momentum moving forward.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Let's see. Just 2 weeks ago, I attended the county coastal group meeting here in San Diego. There are 17 counties in the state of California that have coastal responsibilities, and we've decided to form a coalition, so to speak, of the cities and counties to have a joint workshop with the Coastal Commission probably later this coming year before the middle of this coming year, to really discuss with the Coastal Commission what cities and counties need in order to more effectively be able to plan land use without interference, undue interference by the Coastal Commission. The Coastal Commission, it does have important responsibilities for regulating access to and the benefit of the beaches and the coastline for the people of California. But sometimes they go too far and don't allow cities to do their part in achieving the same goal. And so that's really what this is all about. So that work will be continuing the next year. And I'm honored to be able to be part of that process.
Thank you, Councilmember Patton.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for everybody for showing up tonight. That's great. Last weekend, I went to Christmas Comes to Imperial Beach. It was windy, cold. There were still a lot of people there, but it was windy and cold. It really came to IB. So it was nice. I didn't get to go to the Dunes Park ribbon cutting. I was golfing at the time with some of the Navy personnel that I know. But since then, I've been there a couple times. I noticed a lot of kids thinking it's a play gym. And maybe we could figure that out, like how we could figure out this isn't a play gym, it's a workout gym, but they're having a good time. And I want to mention the Women's Club. They have an event on this Saturday at the Boys and Girls Club. If you want to go there, they have great items there. You could walk around and shop. It's pretty early in the morning. I think it starts at 9. Last year, I bought this awesome sweater, which I might wear next weekend. So, or next council meeting next week. So be ready for that. I'm currently on jury duty right now, up to December 19th. Today, I took the trolley home late this afternoon, and it broke down in the rain, and the door wouldn't close, or I don't know what happened, but it was quite the adventure. But MTS, they did a good job, so no problem there. And I really want to do a shout out to the sheriff. And I noticed we have a lot of sheriff in the audience right now. So thank you, Lieutenant, and the crew. The sheriff at the county courthouse, they are awesome. There's a lot of them, and you're wondering, like, why are there all these people here? Can you imagine that courthouse shutting down, everybody piling out? Of course, we need law enforcement. But they have been so courteous. They've helpful, a lot of smiles, but most of all, I feel very protective. So I want to thank, I don't know what the routine, like, is that a first step before you go on the field, Lieutenant? Okay. Okay. And so anyway, I'm just very impressed. So could you pass that on, please? Okay. Thank you so much. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. West.
Good evening, everybody. So as your representative of the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, this month it's been busy. I had airport development plans for our Terminal 1 expansion, did briefings at National City and Chula Vista. Also was on the executive and finance, as a member of the executive and finance committee. I was in attendance for those. And then I am the chair of the ground transportation ad hoc committee, where we're looking at ground transportation as our airport as a holistic approach. So really trying to look at ways we can improve our traffic on Harbor Drive, which I know is those of us who've driven that road recently can understand very well. So really happy to be a part of that. And then we had a great representative from Grindline who actually designed our original skate park come out and talk to us a little bit about ways to improve the skate park. So there's some interesting ideas there. And then the holiday season is all upon us, and I'm really excited to be there. And we saw Santa at the library with the mayor, and we served dinner to the Boys and Girls Club before Thanksgiving, and Christmas Comes to IB. So it's been awesome. And also, I was really happy yesterday. South County Economic Development Council was their holiday presentation, and I was honored to present Executive Director Cindy Gompers-Graves for 15-year our thanks to her with all of our South County representatives. So it was a great day for South County Economic Development Council. But last but not least, as a member, as a veteran, today was it was a day to remember. I mean, President Bush, 41, was laid to rest, and you know, he is a veteran who is in a position of authority, which are getting less and less every day. We're having less veterans who are actually in our service to our country and politics beyond. So it's really one of the lowest it's ever been in Congress and Senate right now. So President Bush, I didn't always agree with his politics, but as a man who was able to work on both sides of the aisle and put the country first, he was there's some great things. So I'm wearing my naval officer pin for him today. So
Thank you. Great Christmas events at the library and the chamber. Thanks, Valerie. It was really, really nice to have that. I want to really just shout out to the Boys and Girls Club for that wonderful event, the Bill Hickson. I think it was the 23rd annual Feed the Kids. Really wonderful event, not just Feed the Kids, but the family, kids and families event. Really, really impressive event. And so that was really nice. Also, yesterday was the Navy luncheon for the senior center. Really great event. Really nice at the YMCA. The YMCA Camp Surf, which is an amazing facility. All of you who work with community organizations should know that facility is available for community event, and a lot of folks in IB that have community organizations use that event, and so that location is absolutely beautiful. So that was really nice. You know, right? And President Bush was a naval hero. He was one of the earliest ever naval aviators at the age of 18. He signed up after Pearl Harbor. Amazing individual, and was a war hero. You know, and so. Really amazing, honorable man, and really mourning his loss, and obviously honoring his service to our country. You know, we have the world's greatest Navy, formed in 1775. As you know all this. So anyway, it's really great to go back and look at the history of our partners, right, and our neighbors. So anyway, that was a great thing. And then the gym, we're the first city in Southern California, beach city in Southern California, to have an outdoor gym like that, a fitness court. And you're right, we have some work to do, but hey, at least the kids are doing something, right? Whether skateboarding, doing ring stuff, it's really great. There's an app for it, Fitness Court app. We got to put the stickers up still, right? To use stickers. So we'll have a major opening in January, February, right? Yeah, with all the gyms and stuff. And my wife used it with her workout partner, Mary Quisenberry. Yeah, so at 5 a.m. So yeah, she's they're on it. So that's great. Anyway, so we have some communication from the city staff. Before Fire Chief French and Sheriff Magana have a longer presentation, Captain Stab and I wanted you to, if you could come up and just brief us on Tijuana River and the swiftwater rescue activities of our lifeguards. And I know we work with the city of San Diego. And given the rain, I thought that was appropriate.
Yeah, not a problem. Especially on a day like today with the rain we're having. A lot of people don't know the city of Imperial Beach does have a swiftwater rescue team. San Diego gets most of the media attention, but the river down here in the south is the largest river in the county. And it's been known in the past to probably have the most rescues. Now with the new border wall that's up, it has definitely decreased. But 8 years ago, the port funded the river rescue team with equipment and training. Annually, all of our full-time lifeguards go up to Oregon. They spend a week up in Oregon and train with the city of San Diego, which has the most probably elite river rescue team probably in the nation. Tonight, we're on different alerts. There's alert 1, 2, and 3. 1, we outfit our units and get ready to respond. We're on alert 2 right now, where everybody has pagers. And once we're on alert 3, then we're in the field and we're patrolling and effecting rescues in the river. It's a coordinated response because Tijuana River, flows from Mexico. Well, actually, today we met with the Mexican lifeguards, Juan, the captain, in Tijuana, and dealing with the caravan and them trying to cross the river. There's been rescues going on up there. The city of San Diego got one the last rain we had last week, and they're expecting a lot more people trying to cross the river tonight, nighttime, and when it's raining, it's harder for the Border Patrol to detect them and see where they're at. So we have our hands full. Tonight we have 3 of our lifeguards on alert 2 and are out there and ready to respond. So
I don't have any questions, comments. I know, Mr. Patton's a former lifeguard as I am, and I want to thank you guys for doing that. And one of the reasons we want to keep that water clean is because, you know, it's you guys in the city of San Diego guards, when they go in that water, have a risk of getting sick. And, you know, so it's not just the danger of the river, but also what's in that water. So I want to thank you guys. Really proud of the lifeguards for doing that. And that river rescue thing is not an easy course to do as well. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I also, well, you guys are doing a great job. I also want to thank you guys for continually monitoring the river. If you don't know, the lifeguards are our first defense. They go down actually and monitor the river flows. They're reporting back to us, sending photos. Really appreciate that. We really need those eyes on the water. So really appreciate it. Thanks, Robert.
Great. You're welcome.
Now more heroes, more public servants. This is the best part of this job. So we have Fire Chief French and Sheriff's Lieutenant Magana have a presentation of some pretty amazing heroism that happened in public service. So,
Honorable Mayor, City Council, we're here tonight to recognize the efforts and the bravery of two of the sheriff's deputies on the morning of November 21st when we had a structure fire in the 1200 block of Iris Avenue. It was an 8-unit complex, and 4 of the units burned. So I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant and have him talk a little bit about their efforts and what happened.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. So on November 21st at approximately 03:55 hours, or known as 3:55 a.m., a call for service, sir, call for service was dispatched 1235 Iris Avenue of a residential fire. Deputies Barone and Corporal Retta arrived on scene within a minute. So as they parked outside the residence, one person, family member of the residence, was already awaiting for them. They flagged them down, and the call for service did not depict the caliber of the fire, whether it's small or big or to what magnitude it was. So the corporal went to the back of his vehicle, pulled out a fire extinguisher, ran into the apartment complex where the fire was taking place. And well, I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said on body-worn camera footage, but it was more than he anticipated. So he deployed his fire extinguisher, which he immediately knew that he was not going to win that battle. Within 10 seconds, that fire extinguisher depleted. So he made the conscious decision to evacuation mode. So he started yelling, got his partner, Deputy Barone, immediately started evacuating that apartment and the adjacent apartments. So I got a statement from him. I reviewed the body-worn camera footage, and this was nothing less than heroic. Both of them put their lives at risk. Let me back up a little bit. As the Corporal Retta's deploying the fire extinguisher, one of the thing he was trying to put out fell on his arm and later caused second-degree burns to his left forearm. So before he's evacuating people, he went into another apartment adjacent to 1235. It was an elderly disabled family that took a little bit more time to evacuate him, but the entire time he was cool, calm, collective, and met the needs of the residents living there. So once they evacuated everybody, he coordinated, both deputies coordinated the efforts of San Diego Fire, Imperial Beach Fire, the Naval Base, San Diego Police Department, because it was quite a big casualty. So the story is tragic, but with the happy ending. Happy ending being that nobody died, nobody got injured other than Corporal Retta with second degree burns. The fire department alongside of me, they are our ambassadors. They're our partners. That I think one of the small cities, we have the best working relationship with public safety and also with the lifeguard. So I think I commend these two heroes for their bravery. And Sergeant Santiesteban is his second week on the job. He got promoted to sergeant a couple weeks ago. He was my partner in child abuse. He left from homicide, and now he joins us. He was there on scene and immediately started taking action as well, coordinating efforts. So to them, I applaud all three of them for their bravery. Not to mention, they only evacuated 40 people in a matter of minutes. Nobody was injured. Yes, the loss was great to the property and the personal belongings, but again, you cannot replace life.
Well, we really appreciate the service to our community, the work you do every day. More importantly, the actions you took that evening or that morning, and really appreciate professionalism and the dedication you have to serving the public. It's really, really commendable.
Hey, Mayor, I think there's some family members here, so I'm sure they want some pictures with you guys, but I just wanted to I didn't get there till about 7 o'clock because this doesn't come natural. I have to get my beauty sleep to look this good. And I didn't get there. So for like 3 or 4 hours after, they were still on scene. Even with his injuries, he was still on scene. He was still doing work. It was pretty incredible. And talked to some of the firefighters, and the firefighters told me that their actions saved lives. It wasn't just lucky. They literally saved lives. And so, yeah, it was for real. And we really appreciate what you guys do. And like I say, I know there's some family members, so if you guys don't mind, if we can take some pictures.
Take the photo. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Just wanted to make one comment. I was talking to the deputy a few minutes ago, and he goes, "It's not about the honors." He said, "I was just doing my job."
Right.
Good on you. Good on you, Dad.
You guys want to do some photos? Okay.
What do they want a photo with me?
Over here. Come on, guys.
I know. I'm not important. These guys. How's that? That's way more important. Can we just all? This is way better. It's like a family reunion. All right, we got one more. Oh.
Okay. I know City Manager Hall, thank you so much. Oh, I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's really, really nice to see all that family support and community support. Mr. Hall, I know you had comments.
Yeah, there's just a couple housekeeping things, Mayor. On Friday morning at 7:59 a.m., there will be the Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. That will be on the pier. And so we would like to invite everybody to attend that. It's a very moving ceremony. The ribbon cutting for the Veterans Park restroom, which is now finished across the street, will be on Tuesday, December 11th. That will be held at 4:30 p.m. Next Wednesday, a week from today, will be the leaving office and oath of office ceremony, and that'll begin at 6 o'clock in this room. And that is for the newly elected officials as well as Councilwoman Bragg, who is leaving office. This is an announcement that was made today. I want to make sure everyone is aware that the San Diego County Bike Coalition's annual holiday joyride, which was intended to happen tomorrow, will actually happen a week from tomorrow. And it's at Panama 66 at 1450 El Prado in San Diego. Now, you'd wonder why we're announcing that. The City of Imperial Beach received the 2018 Public Partner of the Year Award from the Bicycle Coalition. So that's pretty good for us. I think that was great. And then there's a couple of agenda items. We need some action from the City Council. On tonight's agenda, the applicant has requested a continuance of item number 4.1, both A and B, and that is the development that is being proposed at 236 Palm Avenue, and that will be continued. We're asking that be continued until January 16th, which is your next regular meeting. And then we are asking that item 6.1, which is the RDA Successor Agency Administrative Budget and ROPS, be moved to right after the consent agenda, because we have a visitor that needs to be dismissed as quick as possible. So if we could get a motion on those last two items, that would be helpful.
So do we do it together or just one?
Do it one at a time because Councilmember Patton can't vote on the
On the-
continuance of item 4.1.
Oh, is there a motion to continue items numbers 1.1 and 4.1 to January 16, 2018 at 6 p.m.?
So moved.
Please vote.
Councilmember Patton, please vote. Oh,
Oh,
wait.
yeah.
Sorry.
Can we say why?
Sure, it's due to the location of your residence to the project.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can we have an oral vote, please?
Can we,
Sure.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Yeah, I don't think you
Aye. Thank you.
Motion carried by the following vote. Ayes, Spriggs, West, Dedina, disqualified, Patton due to a potential conflict of interest.
Great. Okay, now, is there a motion to move item number 6.1 immediately after the consent calendar?
So moved.
Please vote.
Yeah, we need to
Oh, thank you.
now.
Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bragg absent.
Great, thank you. Now we have public comment. We have Valerie Aceves from the Chamber of Commerce.
Valeria Sevis, Imperial Beach Chamber, 1221 Palm Avenue. I just wanted to make a comment on the Imperial Beach or the IB, Christmas Comes to IB and the Christmas lighting. This year we made major changes to that program. We wanted to try something new. The Christmas lighting moving to Friday night is a huge success. We believe we're going to keep it that way. Also, comments from the public, we need some more lighting and they want a bigger tree. So we've looked at costs for that, but we really, at this point, can't afford that cost to get a bigger tree. So we're going to look at that next year. Christmas.
We thought the tree was fine. It was okay. It's okay.
I
You're
thought
doing
it
you're
was
doing a
okay,
good job.
but, you know, they were like 18 feet, and so $3,000. I was like, I don't know. So the next day we had Christmas Comes to IB, which we did no toys this year. We just did a book for each child, and we got very good feedback on that. So we'll probably continue to do that and move away from the toys. But I believe next year on the Christmas tree, we might put some names on it and, you know, have children that need a present or something. So you could take a ticket and bring a toy back to us for that. So we think it went really well. We're very happy about that. And we also have a mixer on December 18th at Tuesday, the 18th from 6 to 8 at the Tin Fish. And we're looking forward to everybody coming.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We have Mitch McKay.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and city staff. I had a statement I wanted to read concerning the LCP and GP. First of all, I want to thank city staff, specifically Mr. Andy Hall and Steve Dush, for coordinating and hosting the recent November 26th meeting at the Dempsey Holder facility to conduct some additional community discussions surrounding the upcoming revisions to the LCP and the general plan and to the creation of the CAP, the Climate Action Plan. I'm happy to report over 100 local residents and property owners expressed their concerns and shared ideas with city staff to explore other options and other strategies not previously covered in the original recommendation documents as prepared by AECOM for the resilient IB branding concept. Overall, this community meeting was conducted in a very civil manner, even though spirits ran high at times. I would like to suggest the city look at hosting these type of dialogue generating meetings as a first course of action by the city staff whenever civic input is genuinely sought on complex or controversial issues, not as a desperate last-ditch effort. Again, kudos to Andy Hall and his staff. They were very agile and very cordial in providing a facility and a location There was even cookies and coffee and treats for those who were interested. So again, kudos to Andy and his staff. And we appreciate their progress that's being made as we speak on this paramount local coastal issue. I also wanted to follow up and let you know that I and the balance of those other concerned citizens are anticipating receiving the latest draft of the city's LCP and GP in the near future. And we want to review that in detail. And we're also anticipating the inclusion of our comments and our concerns, and including the removal of invalid terminology and unacceptable strategies. So I want to thank you for your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're not doing the fire prevention poster winners, right?
Correct.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so item 1.1 we're not doing. And now we have consent calendar items 2.1 and 2.11. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar items number 2.1 through 2.11.
So moved.
Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bragg absent.
Great. Now we have item 6.1, adoption of resolution numbers SA 1864 and SA 1865. The Imperial Beach Redevelopment Agency, Successor Agency, approving the administrative budget and the recognized obligation payment schedule for the 12-month period from July 1st to 2019, July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, and approved related actions. Steve Dish will give the report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So this is the annual ROPS, which is the recognized obligation payment schedule, as well as the administrative budget for the successor agency. I certainly won't go into all the detail, but with me, of course, is Kendall Levon, who is our special counsel for the successor agency on this item. And one thing a little bit different about this particular one is, if you'll recall, a couple of years ago, we went from doing this twice a year, right? We had an A and a B schedule. Then it was down to once a year. This is still once a year, but the difference is that the oversight board is now at the county. So there is a county oversight board. Your city staff has been attending those meetings. It's going to be a little bit different relative to some of the information that they're going to be requesting, but we have kept a pulse on that. So this item right here that we have before you, two resolutions, set the administrative budget, which is identified as $250,000, and that pays for the administration for various staff to monitor the various projects that are there, as well as the obligation bonds. So combined together, all of these things that we're looking at is the ROPS is about $4.2 million. And then the administrative budget is $250,000. And again, those are two separate resolutions. We'd be happy to go over any of the details with specific projects in terms of where they're at. The county, we're going to be sending this, subject to your recommendation, to the county next week. And because they're going to be getting all of the 17 or 19 agencies at their January 17th meeting. So we're one of 17 agencies that they will be going over every one of these budgets, and ours is relatively small compared to some of the cities. But with that, I'll conclude, and we request a recommendation of approval for both of the resolutions.
Madam Clerk, do you have any speakers, please?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Mr. West.
Yeah, it just so with the county going over and kind of, I guess, taking the oversight over this more. Are they creating another agency to do this? I mean, how this is going to be a large. I'm just curious how. I mean, my worry is that this is going to be somewhere in the county, and it's not going to get as much attention as I'm hoping that it will get. So, can you explain how they're going to monitor this as we move forward?
Sure. Is this? I think it's on. Yeah. So statutorily, the local county or the local oversight board dissolved by law, and under the dissolution law, there's one oversight board in each county.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's more, if there's 40 or more successor agencies, like in LA. But here in San Diego County, there's less than that. So there's one county oversight board. This is going to be our first meeting with them in terms of approving the ROPS. They were just created July 1. So there's been more informational meetings since then. They've had a few approvals from various successor agencies in terms of real estate sales and so forth. But the ROPS, this is the first time the ROPS is going to be in front of them. They did have a study session last month, and they were trying to review and gear up a little bit. So the meeting on January was a little bit easier to handle. They reviewed past ROPS that were submitted by the successor agencies. They asked a few detailed questions in terms of some of the more complicated obligations that were listed on the ROPS for other agencies. So it's going to be, I think, an experience. Hopefully, they do have great staff manning it, so I think that that's going to help quite a bit. And we've been in communication with the staff as well. So hopefully, and they've been gearing up for this meeting. They did send out some extra forms for the successor agency to fill out, just to provide some additional information, hoping to maybe lessen the questions at the meeting. But it is a statutorily created body. There was various appointments made in various manners, similar to how the local oversight board was created with the various appointments and so forth. So this is statutorily required, and we're moving forward. The staff seems, as I said, to be, I think, they've been, I think, preparing for this upcoming January meeting and trying to get as much information ahead of time as they can. One of the items that they've requested from all the successor agencies was to provide their approvals on the ROPS early enough so they can so we could commit and get them to the county early so they can review. And so at the January meeting is the opportunity for them to approve it. Under the law, the ROPS has to be submitted to the state on or before February 1. So there's not a lot of time between January 17th and February 1 if there's anything that may need to come back to the successor agency. So hopefully, we've been trying to make it a smooth meeting, and that there won't be any difficult or significant questions. So.
Yeah, just to augment that, at the last meeting that I had attended along with some of our finance personnel, they're requesting sort of a comparison, almost like a little sort of an executive summary chart. And so we'll be putting that together to show the differences. The good news is that there are very little differences between ours. And so the successor agency, i.e. the city council and the previous oversight board that the city had, did a really good job of outlining everything. So we'll be summarizing that and submitting that along with this ROPS.
I'm happy you said that since I was on the successor agency. Yeah, I appreciate that.
That may have been the reason why, yeah.
Maybe not. But okay, well, thank you very much for that.
Mr. Sprague.
Thank you very much for the report. Good to see you, Kendall. Not too often, but it is good to see everyone. I guess there are two elements to this. Basically, one is the bond repayment portion, which is the lion's share, and the other is the administrative services or administrative budget. I would imagine that the bond repayments will be very little questions anyone can ask about that it is what it is. So that leaves the administrative side. And so my question is, at $250,000, is that, do you consider that to be defensible? Is that consistent with past administrative cost submissions and the record? And are there any ceilings on the amount that we can budget for that, as there has been in the past? Those three questions.
Yeah, so 250 is our max, and yes, it is defensible. We have actually gone through a pretty forensic accounting of what we have done in the past to line up and marry that up, and we do have an administrative budget that's sort of outlined in there. And again, it's important to remember that administrative budget is for just maintaining that. It's not for specific projects. So for instance, like with 9th and Palm, a lot of work has been going on with that, with the development of that project, and there are certain costs that are separated out from that. But the short answer to your question about is it defensible, it absolutely is, and we account for the work that we do on every project. And like, for instance, when Kendall is submitting bills and invoices for us, she has an account number for every specific project. And then when we're preparing this, that would fall like within the administration component of it. So we account for all of those things.
I might add, I'll add one comment on the bond and then one comment on the admin cost. On item 4 and item 37 of the ROPS, those are reserve obligations. So in other words, the bond documents, the indenture requires that the agency ask for a full year's payment ahead of time. So those two items those amounts will be paid over and then submitted with the trustee and held and used to make the December 2020 bond debt service payment. That's the only question I even can foresee from the oversight board that might come up. But that's required based on the documents for the bonds. And so it's just essentially asking for the December payment now and then making that using those reserve funds, what they would call them, when we make the payment. The other item on the 250,000, as part of the ROPS detail, you'll see there's what they call the report of cash balances. It's a few pages over, and that is actually, it's kind of the state's way of truing up a prior ROPS period. And what it does is it goes through and assures that either the monies that were allocated for certain obligations were spent, and if they weren't, then the balances will be held and used to pay on this upcoming ROPS. So the monies sort of circulate through. And I believe when we did this true up for ROPS 16-17, which was the fiscal year 16-17, there was 248,000 spent. So there was only a couple $1,000s that was not spent out of the administrative cost allowance. And I think that's one of the reasons why the staff continued to ask for the 250.
Just one quick last question. There are a number of expenditures out of the bond proceeds, Palm Avenue for the most part. Are they likely to get into the minutia of those line item expenditures?
I doubt that, because the only items that are listed on the ROPS for expenses are the debt service payments, because I believe the bond proceeds have been spent. So yeah, I don't believe that they would get into that level of detail. If they did, we can answer the question, but I don't believe that they would.
Those reflect prior expenditures then?
Correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Hall,
Yeah, one of the things we heard the other night is when we're talking about some of these complex things, to at least give a quick explanation about what we're talking about. And so just as a real quick explanation, redevelopment agencies actually worked by issuing bonds to improve blighted areas of the community. So they went out and issued these bonds. When the redevelopment agencies were eliminated by the state in 2011, some of those bonds had already been issued. And so what these recognized obligations are that they're talking about are the payments of those bonds. We have to pay those bonds back. So even though the redevelopment agencies have been eliminated, the state gives us money from that tax increment to pay those bonds. And that's those continued recognized obligations. And then they give us some money to administer that. And that's the administrative budget they're talking about, $250,000. So those are the two things we're talking about tonight. And this council used to sit as the redevelopment agency. Once the redevelopment agency was eliminated, they became the successor agency. And that's the other term you're hearing tonight, the successor agency. So again, just a quick explanation, because we heard the other night that sometimes we talk about these complex things because you guys are very aware of it. Some people aren't sure what we're talking about. So I just wanted to give a real quick explanation about what we're discussing.
Thank you for that. I'd like to entertain a motion that the successor agency adopts resolution number SA 18-64, approving the administrative budget for the period from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great. And now I'd like to entertain a motion so that the successor agency adopts resolution number SA 18-1865, approving the ROPS 19-20 for the period from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, and approve related actions.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bragg absent.
Great. Now we have item 3.1, consideration of ordinance number 2018-1179, amending Title 15 of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code to add Chapter 15.56 Imperial Beach Mills Act program related to the preservation of historic properties. City Manager Hall will give the report.
Mayor and Council, I have a quick presentation. I think Steve's pulling up right now before he leaves.
Thank you so much for coming, by the way. Thanks.
Sorry, Steve. Jackie told me we have this already. There we go. Tonight, what we are asking the City Council to do is to accept an introduction of Ordinance 2018-1179, that is the Imperial Beach Mills Act program. And the Mills Act really is intended, by the way, I appreciate Councilman Spriggs giving me some of his pictures of when he was younger for the presentation.
There he is, right on the steps.
Exactly. But no, this is really intended to help out with some of the historic preservation in the community. And just real quickly, I'm going to go through this real quick, and I want to give a picture for everyone to look at. That's the mayor there in the front in the hat. But anyway, the Mills Act is a state law. Exactly. This is the Mills Act was enacted in 1972, and it really allows cities to contract with private property owners so that they can get a reduction in their property tax to maintain historic structures in the community. So hopefully there's at least an incentive to do that. And in order to be eligible for our program, that property must be on either the National Historic Register of National Register of Historic Places or on the California Register of Historic Places. And that's the obligation of the property owner to make sure that those are registered. And then we can enter into a contract, and they're 10-year contracts where they could potentially, sometimes it's not always the case. If you own the property for a long period of time, your Prop 13 reduction may be more than what you might get with the Mills Act. But at least it gives you the opportunity, and we can at least encourage people to try and maintain some of these historic structures that we might have in our community. If they don't do it and they don't live up to the contract, there are penalties in place. They do have to repay the property tax. So that's just a real quick, brief overview. Our recommendation is introduction of Ordinance 2018-1179 that will encourage. And right now, I'm not aware of any structures in our community that are on the register. So some people have to take some actions for that to happen. But if they do, we want to make sure we're supporting that so we can keep some of our historic structure. So that's a quick presentation from staff, and we're asking for a recommendation to introduce Ordinance 2018-1179. And that's a great picture of the old pier.
Great. I'd like to, are there any speaker slips?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. West.
Just one quick thing. When I lived in North Park, we had a home that actually, it is very challenging to go through this entire process. So I'm very happy that we're doing it, but I'm very happy that you mentioned that Prop 13 can actually save money for, in many ways, better than this. So do your research. If you have a home that you think could be eligible for the Mills Act, because there are other things that could preclude you from actually taking advantage of it completely.
Thank you for that. Yeah, in the ordinance, it requires them to get some legal advice, and I apologize, I should mention.
Yeah, that's it.
Any additional comments? Great. That's me fishing. I caught all those fish from my bamboo pole. Anyway, I'd like to entertain a motion to introduce ordinance number 2018-1179, enabling the creation of the Imperial Beach Mills Act program by title only and waive reading in full. And I need the city clerk, I'm sorry, to read the title of the ordinance first.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 2018-1179, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Imperial Beach, California, amending Title 15 of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code to add Chapter 15.56 Imperial Beach Mills Act program related to the preservation of historic properties.
Motion?
Second. Motion? Second. Please vote. I don't have the screen up.
Not blinking.
Sorry about that. Can you please
Not
vote?
blinking.
Oh. Mr. Mayor, can we have an oral vote? I was slow on pushing the button.
I'm sorry.
Oral vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by the following votes: ayes, Spriggs, Patton, West, Dedina, Bragg, absent.
And I want to see suits and ties and dresses when people are fishing on the pier for now. That's amazing.
The surfers have to do.
And the surfers too. That's right.
Now we have item 4.2, Floriano Lo Sapio, Silo Properties LLC. Site plan consideration of design review case, site plan review, tentative map and categorical exemption pursuant to CEQA guidelines for the construction of 8 new residential units, 2 buildings, each with 4 units at 1337 Holly Avenue. And we declare the public hearing open. Assistant Community Development Director Fultz will give the report.
Good evening. Would you
I'll-
like to see it?
I'll start. You guys, please.
Okay. This is my first round, so.
Thanks for being here.
All right, Mayor, members of the council. This is for the construction of 8 new residential units condominium units at 1337 Holly Avenue. The applicant is Floriano Lasepio, who's here at the dais or at the speaker area. The zoning is R2000, medium density residential. The parcel is 17,000 square feet, which would allow for 8 units, and that's what's being proposed on the property today. This is the existing configuration of not only the property, but the surrounding area. There's 5 existing units, and as you can see, there's a lot of multi-family units in that area. Many were built under different zoning regulations, which double the density that's allowed for today. This is the site as you see it currently. There's an existing curb cut that doesn't lead anywhere currently. These are the existing units with a chain link fence, and these are just some more pictures of the existing site. These are properties to the west. Again, they're multi-unit properties to the east, to the north. And then this is the site plan that's being proposed. 8 units would access the property via 1 curb cut on Holly Avenue. There would be a private yard for each residential unit. On some of these units, on the corner units, the project is doubling the amount of open space that's required. There'd be 2 car garages per unit, which is exceeding the code because the code right now it requires 2 parking spaces, but only half of them need to be enclosed. They're enclosing all of the parking spaces. One of the questions that's been coming up on some projects is, well, how do we make sure that those garages are going to be used for parking? So we asked the applicant, would you be able to put regulations on the property to make sure that it's used for parking? And they drafted CC&Rs and they showed us the language. We attached it to the staff report that made sure that that would take place. If there is storage within the garage, it still would not preclude parking within that area as well. This is the landscape plan for the property. There's various trees and shrubs throughout. There's also permeable pavers that would be used because it's a priority project. So they're going to infiltrate a lot of water on their property and maintain it on site. And this is just some of the landscaping that's proposed. These are elevations for the building. So the north elevation, which is facing the street, there's different materials proposed. There's siding, stucco, and also a rock base at the bottom. And as you can see at the top left, even the trash enclosure, they're proposing to have a roof on top of it for some better aesthetic appeal. These are elevations on the east and west, the internal courtyard area, and then also the exterior.
Want to hold them up? Is that the view from 13th Street? I mean, no, from Holly. The view from Holly.
Yes, the view from the front.
Okay.
I'll show it on the screen too. So these units have 3 bedrooms, and then here's a rendering so everybody could see it as well. The design review board reviewed the project. They recommended approval of the design with a 4-0 vote. They appreciated this specific design for that area. They thought it fit in very well, but it would also make an enhancement. They liked the colors that were proposed, and they liked the treatment for the roof and the surrounding on the windows. They also requested that additional pavers be provided, a pedestrian pathway from the street, a seating area within the courtyard, and that the renderings even showed the downspout so that the council can truly see what it would look like when it was built. And all of these requests were accommodated by the applicant. And these are some of the renderings for the project. They even have some internal floor plans in case anybody's interested.
The renderings really help, by the way. Good. Well done. Thank you. Appreciate that. It helps us.
There was an alternate color that was proposed just in case there was some interest. This was shown to the design review board. Ultimately, the design review board didn't like the gray. They thought it was a little too gray. So that's why the blue is being proposed and shown to you today. One thing to note with regards to the height, 26 feet allowed. They're proposing 24.5 feet. They're proposing less than the maximum allowed floor area, less than the maximum allowed lot coverage. So the project you see today meets and exceeds all the codes. So the recommendation today is to adopt the resolution to approve the project at 1337 Holly Avenue for 8 condominium units. Of course, the council could also provide alternate conditions, disapprove the project with findings, or continue the public hearing to a future date.
Great, thank you so much. Madam Clerk, do you have any speaker slips?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Did you guys want to say anything before we
No,
discuss?
I just want to introduce the contractor, Mr. Armstrong, sorry. And he's basically going to take it from what we're saying.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks again for the renderings. Mr. Patton?
Yeah, thank you. So are you the owner or
I
designer? Is a designer here?
I am.
You did both.
Did both.
You did both. So I have a couple comments to you. First of all, I want to thank you. And I think you guys went above and beyond, in my opinion. A lot of things that come to us sometimes. I wish more people would do what you're doing. Because I really think your parking guidelines that you decided is, hey, listen, these parking, they need to be used for cars, not to stuff like all your stuff. The color blue, I think that's Mayor's IB blue. Is that correct?
Our IB blue.
Yeah, our IB blue. And the white trim, simple, not going above and beyond of too many colors. You went lower than most people do. And the design overall is very smart. I mean, I could see projects like this in IB really bringing in a new trend of people, and people would want to live here and stay here. So thank you very much. That's all I really have.
Great, thank you. Mr. Spriggs?
Thank you very much. Very attractive project. And it's really great to see a developer come in with density that's sort of under the max, for a change. So I'm hopeful to set the trend in that regard as well. I commend the design review board for actually working with you to suggest some improvements, including, as my colleague mentioned, the idea of garages for parking of vehicles instead of storage, and that means if it's storage, that means the vehicle goes out on the street. You're not a resident of Imperial Beach, are you? You are. Okay, so then you know what a problem parking is in Imperial Beach.
Go for real, so
Yeah,
we don't even have a garage.
Yeah, it's probably in the top 3 concerns that people in the residential areas complain about, along with speeding and a few other things. So I guess my question is this: even with 2 parking spots per unit, and given that these are 3-bedroom units, likely that they're going to need both, because they're family units, or maybe even 2 small families in 1 unit. Who knows? There's the question of where are other people going to park? Visitors, for example. So that leaves, again, there's no on-site excess parking for visitors, considering that just about everybody in 3-bedroom units is going to have 2 vehicles. And I think we average probably more than 1 vehicle per person anyway in Imperial Beach. So that to me is a concern. I don't know that there's anything you can do about it. There's no room on the lot for excess parking.
But I understand what you say. Hopefully I'm not sure if we say 2 families they are definitely designed for whatever debate out there.
Right.
So the hope is that there are two vehicles are garage. Yes, they will, but let's hope that the company forever. Otherwise, they will all become a department of the house.
Yeah, that's a concern.
It's a total concern, but
This question is for Tyler, and then I want to come back to you at the last question. Tyler, in terms of the density on this lot of this project, you know, the number of units on the lot, particularly taking into consideration that there are 3-bedroom units, how does that compare with the multifamily surrounding unit? I mean, we know they're multifamily. You've disclosed that in the report, a very well done report. But just in terms of the number of people on this in this project compared to other adjacent and nearby lots, number of people, number of units, etc. What's your sense?
For this project, it's 1 unit for every 2,000, and they're actually a little bit more, 1 unit for every 25 square feet or so. For the surrounding properties, they're all built at about 1 unit for every 1,000 square feet or so about double the density around them.
Okay, so this is lower density.
This is much lower density, yes.
Okay, and I guess the last question is, what's your anticipated, if you can disclose it or if you're willing to, price range that you're hoping for?
God. Okay, anybody has a crystal ball
$2
here?
million.
Because yeah, because who knows what the market is going to be. My projection is that we can start sometime in January, and hopefully will be completed within 12 months. Okay, everybody heard? Is it on record? Please,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Record everything.
Is that okay? Great, okay.
I better be.
But we have no idea what the practice are going to be. And right now, we will project 575. Very accessible, but input was it.
Mr. West.
Tyler, can you go back and show me what is existing in the right now at the property? So if you can see on the project, it doesn't look like there's any parking actually allowed right now on the property, right?
It would be allowed, but they'd have to demolish buildings to construct it.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that there's no parking that's actually on the lot now.
They're correct.
Correct. So this is the actual, what you're doing here is actually removing parking from the street because you're actually making more parking available on the project, which will actually probably help the street and improve the parking in the long run. Okay, great. Thanks. That's all I got.
Thanks, everybody. And I actually grew up around the corner on Hemlock, 1400 block of Hemlock. So I know the street really well. My best friend, Scott Owen, lived on the corner of just down the street near, about half a block away. So I know this area really well. And it was an example, I think, when this area was really developed and downzoned. This is the Wild West period of IB, when anything goes. There's buildings in this neighborhood that I can't even imagine how they were ever approved, especially across the street from where I grew up on Hemlock. I mean, I look at stuff and go, thank God the city's changed. I think this is an example of good design and good practice. So we're grateful for you for being responsible in that way. And the city process, the design review board, and our city council and our city staff to really make sure that it's not just the form, but the design. Now it fits into the neighborhood. So we appreciate that. And the price, and who knows where the market is going. I think the market's cooled off. I think your prices actually kind of reflect a more realistic price.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been some folks who bought similar properties in other areas that it was when the market, I think, was overvalued.
We love
So, these are
700,000,
essentially
frankly.
Mrs. Middle Class housing for San Diego County. It's at the market rate. So anyway, so thank you very much. I
I
appreciate
want
it.
to add something though.
Yeah.
The people at the city were really helpful with the plan.
Right.
In the way that, for example, they mentioned that they would have preferred to see trash. Originally, I had placed the trash bin in the garage, thinking that they would drag them out, but they decided that it was the best way to do it is to actually have a total cover unit in the back. So they really been amazing.
Good, these guys are
Yeah.
smart. Oh,
Yeah.
anyway, you had a comment?
Well, it's good to hear the city was helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Yeah, it's good to hear
Very,
that
very
because I hear that often. But I really think that we as a city should really guide other developers to what you're doing, saying that you came up and everybody's all smiles. So other people come up and there's not smiles up here. So you're getting it good, and because you did a great job. So I really think that we should, city manager Paul, should be listening, and Mr. Tyler, we should be listening to what works and what's a good deal for Imperial Beef. Not getting the most bang for our buck, which I hate. We don't need the most bang for our buck here, like every square inch, but do it right. So I think that's what we're doing here. Thank you.
Great.
But you could do that with expedite programs. Like, say, hey, you do this, make it go quick.
Yeah. And, we're looking for more land, so let me know.
Okay. I have a backyard. Okay.
Thank you so much. You can sit down. With that, I'd like to close the public hearing and entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2018-7983.
So moved.
Please vote. We get that?
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bragg absent.
Just to clarify, is it resolution 7983 or 7993?
I read 2018-7983. Is that right?
That's what it says in our.
7983 is what I see on the agenda, so we just want to make sure that that's.
Yeah, that's right.
83.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Okay.
We will double check that and attach the correct.
So we have to
Okay.
vote again.
It is 7983. Okay,
Correct.
thank
Okay,
you.
You're right. Okay, great. Let's move on to item number 4.3. Thanks again. Appreciate you coming out. Item 4.3, public hearings to receive input concerning district maps for city council elections, district boundaries, sequencing elections, consideration to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2018-1178, establishing a by-district election process in 4 council districts by continuing an elective office of mayor, and consideration of resolution number 2018-7993, approving a statement of intention for the city council to enact the best interest of the city. Public hearing is now open. City Attorney Lyon will give the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, this is the 5th and last public hearing and final action of the City Council in this multi-step process that the Council has been going through since September relating to the districting process under the California Voting Rights Act. So at the November Council meeting, the City Council did select the Rose B map and selected the areas that would be up for election in 2020 and in 2022. 2 and 4, districts 2 and 4 would be 2020, districts 1 and 3 for 2022. Tonight, we would request that the City Council hold the public hearing, entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance by title only of this to complete the process of creating the districts. And in addition to that, based on some comments we've heard from the City Council along the way, staff did also present with agenda item 4.3 a resolution where the council can declare its intent to, even though there will be districts and council members will be elected by districts, just to declare the council's intent that they will continue to represent the whole city, because council members will still be required to represent the whole city when they sit as the city council. So that resolution is not mandatory, but staff wanted to submit it for your consideration tonight. So there would be 2 actions tonight. It's the adoption and second reading of the ordinance, as well as the resolution. And I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Do you have any public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. McKay, you're here. Did you want to give any feedback? I wanted to thank you for your feedback and all the other members of the public, the cartographers that took this process really seriously. So thanks for being here. I know you're not going to comment, but I appreciate all the input you gave, and et cetera. Thanks. And so I guess we have a public council comment. Mr. Briggs, did you have a comment?
I had 2. I forgot what the first one was.
go right to number 2 then.
All right, we'll go right to number 2. Oh, I know what the first one was. Good. You mentioned the non-mandatory resolution regarding calling upon future city council members to, even though they come from district, to consider themselves representing all the people of Imperial Beach. I think that's an extremely important concept. It's one of the reasons that I've been probably, as much as anybody on this council, skeptical about going to district. In a small community like ours, where we're constantly trying to build on the forces for community as opposed to the forces that tear our community apart, I don't see districting as necessarily being supportive of community unity. But the California Voting Rights Act has, gotten us, and circumstances have gotten us to this point, so we're moving ahead. Based on all of that, I don't understand why we can't make the service to the entire community a part of the approval, as opposed to a separate, voluntary, non-mandatory. So that for all time, after we're long gone, people who are elected from each of these districts understand that they have a dual obligation. Yes, to the people who elected them from their district, but also to all of the people of Imperial Beach. To me, those are not inconsistent. We meet the terms of the California Voting Rights Act because we have districts, and indeed we have districts that, at least at this point, demographically meet the rationale that got us to this point in the first place. And that's sufficient. But for our community's sake, being a small community that prides itself on being a community, more is needed. And I think I would go a step further and would like to see one resolution where this is incorporated. And so for all time, as long as we have district, people elected by district have that important second mandate to comply with. Otherwise, it's just,
Well, let me explain. I think I mentioned this, but by law, council members are elected by the districts, but you still have a fiduciary duty to the city as a whole. So the law already requires council members, once elected, to respond to the city as a whole. This resolution is just essentially a further step, just to declaring the council's intention, a good faith resolution, essentially, because by law, they're still going to have to represent the city as a whole.
By what law? Is that the California Voting Rights Act?
Not the California Voting Rights Act, but when council members are elected to the city council, that is required pursuant to being a council member.
I think that's great pre-districting part of California law. The general law cities go by. But once a city goes through the process of districtizing, there needs to be, I think, greater emphasis on that obligation on the part of the city itself that adopts the district approach. So I stand by what I said before. I mean, sure, there are many legal obligations that we have as elected officials, as fiduciaries. There's all sorts of ethical requirements and all that. And yet every year or every 2 years, we are reminded of those in special courses and that sort of thing. This is something that ought to be, and that won't be the case necessarily for the election process. In other words, to me, this is just as important as our twice a year ethics courses that we all have just taken, or at least some of us, because our 2 years were up. This is fundamental to our community's cohesiveness. And I don't think it's something we should take lightly or take for granted or assume that just because it's in the general law of the state that people are going to adhere to it. So therefore, I think it ought to be incorporated into the primary resolution that's approving the district.
But we can't change the ordinance at this point in time for districts because we don't have time at this point. The council introduced the ordinance at the last meeting, and now we're up against a deadline in the California Voting Rights Act. So because this isn't a mandatory part of the Voting Rights Act, I would suggest if you don't want to approve it as is tonight, the resolution you don't need to go forward with, but the ordinance I would recommend that the council proceed with because of the timeline we're under.
Would it be possible for the resolution to include an additional clause or paragraph or whatever, that it's the city council's intention to, at the next opportunity, incorporate that into the ordinance, so that we amend the ordinance to incorporate that clause in the future, pass the ordinance as it is tonight? Is that possible?
I wouldn't support that.
Yeah, I don't recommend that. The other thing we have to deal with is the principle that councils can't bind future councils other than, so the resolution is declaring the current council's intent. And I think, as staff, every time there is, a newly elected council member and in orientations and as such, and maybe even every 2 years, the city council wants to adopt a new resolution declaring its intent. But anyhow, I don't recommend including in a resolution an intention to amend an ordinance, especially an ordinance that has importance under the law. I think we should stick with that. As I said, I think it's fine if we want to look at revising this ordinance a little bit the resolution to bring back to the council in January if you're not happy with the wording. But I don't want to, do anything that would necessarily impact the ordinance that we're under a time frame and a legal framework to adopt.
I guess I'll direct this to Mayor Dedina, who indicated he wouldn't support that kind of a subsequent change. It seems to me that even if there's a whereas clause in the ordinance that just reflects that is the intention of the city of Imperial Beach, of the city council, not even if it's in the ordinance that creates the district as a whereas clause. It doesn't have to be a mandatory provision. And we do that at some point in the future, maybe after the new council is sworn in at some point in the future, whatever. It just seems to me that there certainly are benefits to having districts, but let's not forget that this is something that we've been directed to do. We're making lemonade out of it, but we've been directed to do this. Let's do it on terms that we think benefit the entire community. And I think the sense of obligation of all future elected to the city as a whole is not too much to ask.
I'm sorry, we serve on boards with elected officials from all over the county, with district, city, county and district. The county of San Diego have districts, and the city of San Diego and cities from around the county. I've never felt like anybody from a district, when they're sitting on that board, isn't representing their city or their county or their agency, or for that matter, a congressman or congressperson doesn't represent the United States, the interests of the United States. So, or a state assembly member doesn't represent the interests of the state of California because they have districts. So I understand your potential concern, but I just don't see any evidence that that's happened in any other city.
I think there's lots of evidence that it exists at the congressional level that you cited. I wouldn't even go to that example. Let's not even use that example.
We take an oath of office, and when you're elected, you don't take an oath of office for your district. You take an office for the city of Imperial Beach and the state of California.
I understand that. I understand that. We're at a moment in history here where we are adopting a different political electoral structure for the city. That's all I'm saying. And we're at this point in time where this is a concern that everybody has. It and the fact is that there is a danger, since we're talking about experiences that we haven't had yet, that any elected from a particular district in Imperial Beach ultimately has to get reelected by that district. And there'll be times when there are broader issues affecting Imperial Beach that are in contrast to the issues in that district. This happens everywhere all the time. I think the example of the fact that we sit on boards and that we know other council members who sit on state boards and regional boards and Sandag and whatever that speak for their cities as a whole is not really doesn't really go to the point of
Well,
what
I guess I would argue that.
Excuse me. Let me just finish the sentence. Doesn't really go to the point of what happens in City Hall, what happens here, not out there when we're representing Imperial Beach, obviously, but what happens here when we have issues that don't equally apply to all parts of Imperial Beach, and where people are going to come out. And I think that it's really important that in a small community like this, that's dealing with major community-wide issues, and will be for the foreseeable future, that every future elected official is under that clear obligation, and that we set that standard right now when we adopt the district system.
Councilmember Spriggs, I hear what you're saying. I think that it is important to think about. I mean, all these cities around us are dealing with a lot of the same issues that we are, and they're dealing with this issue. And I am very concerned, knowing the track record of the attorney that is bringing this, that if we try to, if we don't move forward with this ordinance tonight, that we're going to open ourselves up for serious litigation that I don't want to take the chance on. I mean, we're working on some very.
I'm not saying that we don't adopt this ordinance as proposed tonight. Let me be clear. I think we have to, for the reasons that you're pointing out. I am talking about what we do with respect to the resolution, and how that resolution, that we're taking the time to adopt as a second measure here. We're going to vote on it. And that principle in that resolution is a voluntary principle regarding future council members. So let's not say we can't bind future council members, keeping in mind that they represent the city as a whole, not just their district. All that I'm saying is that as a matter of form and substance, that ought to be a substantive integral part of our decision going forward to create districts in Imperial Beach.
I guess
that's all that I'm saying.
Do you really think that I don't think that I would ever, I'm as a person running for the city of Imperial Beach, I don't think that I would ever, just because I'm running for that district doesn't mean that I'm not representing the city of Imperial Beach. I just don't think any council member or any of us would say, I mean, I just can't believe that, because I know that we are taking an oath to the city of Imperial Beach, not to our
California.
district. Yeah, in the state of California. I just don't think it seems like to me that it's something that is that we're manufacturing in many ways, because it is not what we are. Just because I'm living in the district that I'm elected in, that doesn't mean I will always represent every city, every member of this community, because that's what we do.
So you don't think that the resolution is necessary? Attachment 2.
We have a resolution.
I just don't think
that's the conclusion.
I'd like to move forward. So.
Yeah, I have 6 reasons why I'd like to make a motion. But I'll just give one. I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to entertain a motion to conduct a second reading and adopt ordinance number 2018-1178 by title only to waive full reading of the ordinance. Is there a motion?
I motion.
Second.
Mr.
Please,
Mayor, can I read the title first, please?
I'm sorry.
Can I read the title first, please?
Sure.
Ordinance number 2018-1178, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, establishing a by-district election process in 4 council districts while continuing with an elective office of mayor pursuant to California Elections Code Section 10010 and California Government Code Sections 34871C and 34886, and amending Imperial Beach Municipal Code Title II, Administration and Personnel to provide for City Council election districts.
I didn't technically close the public hearing. So closing the public. There was a motion.
And a second.
Good. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present.
And then I'd like to get a motion to consider approval of resolution number 2018-7993.
Motion. Second.
Please vote.
Motion carried by the following votes: ayes, Dedina, West, Patton; noes, Spriggs.
I'd like the record to reflect the fact that I voted no, because I think this provision should be mandatory and not voluntary.
Item 4.4, public hearing to consider approval of resolution number 2018-7994, setting the regulatory safety permit cannabis outlet application process fees pursuant to Imperial Beach Municipal Code, Chapter 4.6. I declare the public hearing open. City Attorney Lyon will give the report.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, as the Council is aware, you adopted an ordinance this past summer that went into effect on October 11th, 2018, related to allowing one cannabis outlet in the city of Imperial Beach. Applications for the first outlet will be available starting January 29th, 2019, and then the city stops accepting applications for that outlet on May 4th of 2019. Your municipal code now, Chapter 4.60, contains an extensive qualification and requirements that the applicants have to go through to obtain the regulatory safety permit to operate the outlet. And in order to achieve full cost recovery for the application process, which will include city staff time, consultant time, potentially legal services, and back check and live scan services, the city's going to require a $10,000 deposit at the time of application submittal. And then they're going to use that to pay the actual cost. The law requires when the city is going to set regulatory, or not regulatory, but essentially cost recovery fees for applications, that we hold a public hearing, and staff would ask that you hold that public hearing and set the rates at the time that the actual city staff time, their current rate paid to the staff. The consultant time is going to be the actual rate that's charged to the city. The same with legal services and background and live scan services. We can't specify those actual rates because they'll be, as they go through the process, those rates will be produced. So that is the item before the council tonight. This is different than the once the cannabis outlet gets up and operating, there will be regulatory fees for staff oversight. That item is going to be a separate item that will being brought back to the council in the future. We needed to do this one now because the application process will start in January, so we wanted to make sure this one was done. Because no one will even be able, the application process won't be closed until May 4th. City staff has some additional time as new regulations are going on throughout the state of California. Staff has some additional time to study and investigate and come up with a proposal for council to adopt the regulatory fees. I'm available for questions, as well as Steve Dush.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. So the rate of $10,000, is that comparable to other cities, or how do you like?
I think at this point it's at least our city staff's good faith estimate of how much we want to deposit. We don't know if it's going to cost that much. I was at a presentation not too long ago from an attorney that represents applicants trying to get through the city of San Diego, and she informed us that actually the cost to get through the application process, et cetera, all of that is in the range of about $1 million at this point in time, at least through San Diego's process. And that probably is because they're paying lawyers, they're going through public hearings, they're doing things like that. So it could go much higher. Because we don't have a public hearing process, it's probably going to be much lower. But I think from staff's perspective, at $10,000 is a decent estimate. And then as we go, we're going to find out,
So
whether we
can
need to hire consultants, whether we need to hire lawyers.
change that amount.
Well, 10,000 is just the deposit.
Right.
And then they have to pay how much ever it costs. So they will be submitting reimbursements, or not reimbursements, but additional deposits as city staff needs them. But 10,000 might, it might do it. And there may be excess funds that get refunded at the end of it. So we do know that there's not a public hearing process with our application situation as in some other jurisdictions. So it will cost less, but we don't know how much. So.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Patton actually addressed the question.
So the items listed on page 2 of the report, the 4 items, are intended to be covered by the application fee, but may also require funding from the regulatory fee that we're still going to be working on.
No, the application fee is 10,000. It's a preliminary deposit. And as the application is getting processed, if the city does need to hire, additional lawyers or consultants to help them process the applications, that's going to come from additional deposits. Or, the 10,000 may be sufficient, but if not, they're going to continue to put 10,000 is just that. It's a deposit. They have to pay the actual cost. If it costs $20,000 to process their application, they have to pay it.
Okay. So some of those items listed, for example, city staff time, consultant time, legal services, background and live scan services, blah, blah, blah. There may be other costs that we would need to cover with the regulatory fee that would be beyond what the application fee.
Absolutely. The regulatory fee is going to cover additional things. I don't know the full extent of that at this point in time, but I'm assuming, code enforcement time, maybe sheriff's time. And there will be ongoing, I believe, background and live scan as they're up and running. But
so all of us, to various degrees on the council, I think particularly Councilmember West and I have put a lot of emphasis on data gathering to be able to assess whether this is working, whether there are issues regarding increased use among youth, increased school disciplinary issues, increased safety issues in the community, all in terms of whether we want to renew a license or move to a second facility. So data gathering and analysis is going to be very important. It's not one of the 4 items listed. That's what I was driving here. It's not one of the 4 items listed that probably will need to be contracted out in terms of how to set up the sources of the data, make sure it's consistent, has integrity, et cetera, and then to analyze it for us and present it to us at the appropriate time when we want to evaluate how well this is working in Imperial Beach and defend it, because there's a lot of concern in the community even now about having a cannabis retail operation. So I just would like to make sure that it's on the record that we know that there's also going to be the data gathering and evaluation aspect of this, that we will need to have cost, not to our general fund, but to the cannabis operation in terms of the regulatory fee that will need to cover those things as well, the data gathering and analysis. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah, and it's not part of the application fees, but as staff brings back the regulatory aspect, staff will be able to determine which type of regulations of the actual business are going to be required.
Close the public hearing. Motion to adopt resolution number 20.
So moved.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bragg absent.
Now we have item 5.1, resolution number 2018-79.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We recently just submitted to the Water Board our implementation plan to be in compliance with the new state trash policy. I previously brought this back to Council August 2017, I gave you guys an introduction to what this new state trash policy was, but I'll do a brief introduction of what it is. The state adopted trash amendments, what they're called, in April 2015, and then required our local regional water quality control board to develop rules for all phase 1 and phase 2 permitting agencies. That's us and like school districts and the Navy and all those agencies, to develop a plan of how you're going to capture 100% of the trash before it goes into a storm drain. They require a 10-year compliance schedule for this, and then requires annual monitoring reporting to the regional water quality control board. So what does this really mean for Imperial Beach? And I'm just going to briefly go over what's our plan, what we just submitted to the board, and just so you have an idea of what we're doing over the next 10 years. We had to identify the high priority land use areas that the state told us that we had to identify under this order. This is high density residential areas, mixed use commercial areas, and transit corridors. These are the ones highlighted in different colors for the high use areas in our city. Then we're required to overlay our stormwater network on it anywhere where the high priority land use, which right now is the blue color, intersects with our storm drain system. Then we have to implement some type of full trash capture system that's certified by the state. What type of systems are we looking at? Well, in our plan, we identify 4 types of trash capture DMPs. The simplest of them all, I'm calling them inlet systems. These are trash screens, catch basin filters, catch basin screens that are on here. These systems are good to install in existing storm drain systems where there's existing capacity to handle the storm drain. If there's not existing capacity in it, then you either need to retrofit the catch basin insert or the catch basin to be able to put one of these in, or you got to come up with a different solution. Another type of solution that you have for there's lack of capacity is you can do an inline trash capture system. This is a photo of one that we installed on Imperial Beach Boulevard right at 10th Street. This is put into what the one we installed is called a CDS unit, a continuous deflecting unit, where it uses the centrifugal force to spin trash out and sediment out, and we have that right at 10th and Imperial Beach Boulevard. There's other parts of town where this may be an appropriate location to put this in. A third type we're looking at potentially are end of pipe treatment systems. I mean, it could be simple. Something like a net at the end of a storm drain pipe. We got one of these types of things, and that's at the end of Palm Avenue. It's the Palm Avenue diverter. It's a giant wet well that goes in there, and there's a pump that eventually pumps up water and pumps it out into the ocean when there's rain. The pump doesn't suck up trash. It's essentially a full trash capture system at the end of Palm Avenue. And then the fourth one is one that the state hasn't certified yet, but I really think they should. And this is what we're pushing on. These are the multi-benefit type system. These are ones that are not just address trash, but a whole lot of other issues in it. This is the green infrastructure that we've been doing all around the city. We're going to be doing more of it. It makes a whole lot of sense for the state to certify these as full trash capture, and I'm pretty sure they will, because you get a lot more support for doing more than just capturing trash if you can actually address other pollutants and infiltrate water and address flooding. So those are the 4 systems. What we did is we had to look at every drainage basin and propose some type of plan to the regional board. We got a good proposal to the board. We're keeping it kind of general in nature. I want to let you know, we're actually making steps already moving forward in addressing these things. These are projects that have already been developed or already planned. So in the very near term, like for example, the Imperial Beach Boulevard project, all of Imperial Beach Boulevard, the #1 area that we have highlighting here, is going to be capturing 100% of the trash. So we have plans on what to do for incorporating a lot of these trash capture things into our capital improvement project as we move forward. But I want to highlight that there are some challenges areas in our community on here, and this really is because of some of our sea level rise and existing flooding concerns we have in the city. So challenging areas that we're going to really have to come up with some creative solution on. The rest of Seacoast Drive on it, right at Data Avenue, where there is already flooding concerns. To block any more of the flow without addressing a larger structural issue in that area. On the bay side, you have the bayside drainage. That's all within a FEMA flood map zoned area out there. It has its own issues that we've got to come up with some really creative solutions on how you want to address the drainage there. It's also probably the most vulnerable area to sea level rise in our areas. That one area that's highlighted in 8. Yes. That whole area right there. at some point we're going to have to come up with some creative solutions of what do you want to do with that neighborhood and vision. And as we do that, we'll throw trash capture on top of that. And then the last area is over on the southeast part of town, over the Oneonta neighborhood, where it's just really flat, but where we're constrained up against the U.S. Navy. The good thing about this is the Navy's actually called out on one that's permitting, so this might be an opportunity for us to be able to work with the Navy to actually improve the drainage on here, because they're going to have to address their drainage system to be in compliance with this trash program as well. So this might actually be a window for a drainage area that we've long had a problem. The window might be open to especially do some partnerships with the Navy. I submitted a very general timeline with milestones. It was required of the regional board. My intent was to keep it as flexible as possible, so we can really incorporate these trash requirements most cost effectively into our system. So incorporating new trash systems into our existing BMPs, in the low hanging fruit first. The milestones that we have is within the first 5 years of the program, we're going to be 50% of our city's going to have a full trash capture, and then within 8 years we'll be 80%, and then within 10 years we'll have 100%, and we'll be in full compliance with the state order. And the reason why I really did submit a general plan, I don't want to lock the city into to a really strict program what we had to put into, because I want to make this as cost effective as possible. We're looking to get a new stormwater permit sometime this year from the regional board, so we're going to incorporate trash into the city's jurisdictional runoff management program. So it'll be part of just the existing program using existing staff. We're going to probably have to do another update to our municipal code related to stormwater when we get a new permit. We've done that every single time, so I can imagine we're going to do that again. So we'll put the requirements for trash capture on every new development project that comes in here. So when you're putting in storm drain systems on your property, you got to put in a state certified trash capture and maintain it. At the same time, we've already taken the step, but we're getting better. We're incorporating trash into all of our capital improvement projects. If we're going to be repaving a street, we'll address an undersized catch basin at that time, make it compatible with this program. And like I said, it also opens up an opportunity for us to partner with some of our agencies that are under the same rules. So we share drainages with the Navy, with the Port of San Diego, and the City of San Diego. These always been challenging to work with these agencies in the past. Now we have a shared program where maybe there's more leverage for us to actually address some of these challenging drainages with these agencies. But
and hopefully trash management, because I argue that the City of San Diego isn't doing a very good job.
I would agree. But there is going to be increased operation and maintenance costs related to this. It's reasonable in my opinion, but right now we don't spend a whole lot on maintenance contracts and maintaining storm drains. But when you put these systems in, if you don't maintain them, then it's just a screen that's going to clog and you're going to cause flooding. So you have to maintain these. This is not the type of funding that you can really easily cut without having larger impact. And then on staff time, there's going to be a fair amount of increase in monitoring and reporting efforts attached to this. So with that, I'll open up for discussion if you want to know any more.
Awesome. Scott, Mr. Spriggs.
Thanks for that. You do such a great job on this stuff. I mean, I really, I think we're very lucky to have you on so many of the environmental things that you do. What I'm wondering about is cost and cost sharing, not the O&M as much as the capital costs. And you indicated there will be some sources of funding in terms of new development and fees related to that. There may be grant programs available, but ultimately it's going to be our responsibility to pick up residual costs. And I know it's kind of premature to ask about this, but it's something I'd like to put on your mind, and maybe if you have some thoughts right now. What do you think these new systems are going to cost over time in order to adequately protect our runoff from trash? And what do you think, which is happening as we speak? Thank you. And how will that be shared? Will it be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 roughly between grants, development, new developers, new developments, and city? Or what's your general sense of those two ballpark kinds of challenges?
So the costs are really come two categories. It's the installation, which there's an upfront cost on it, which typically get covered under capital improvement projects, and most of these have been covered under grants. Like IB Boulevard, all of these trash things are covered under the grant programs. And it's quite reasonable to assume in the future a fair amount of the installation costs will be covered under grants or covered under our existing operation and maintenance within the city as we have our street guys doing regular repair on our catch basins that need to be repaired. Well, we'll repair it and we'll upsize it when we put it in. So I think we could put that into our operations and factor that in. It's what everyone says. It's the operation and maintenance that everyone forgets about. That's on it. This is another shiny object that we got to maintain. You know, everything new that we put in requires operation and maintenance, and that's regardless if it's a new building or if it's infrastructure that's underground like these storm drains. It costs about $100 per catch basin to go service, and you got to service them about 4 times a year, and that's current cost right now. We have in total 100 catch basins. If we retrofit every single catch basin that hit on its order, we have about 100 of them that need to be retrofitted and cost. It's not a huge cost for operation and maintenance on it. It kind of double what we're currently paying right now. I think that's fairly reasonable in comparison to some of the other trash programs that we have. We spend $15,000 a year on pet waste bag, for example, supporting the city, and we're talking about a complete build up, maybe $50,000 a year on operation maintenance costs at the end of 10 years.
Mr. West.
Who's the dog?
That's my dog.
Okay, good. Just wanted to come. I agree, Chris. I agree with Councilmember Spriggs. You do a great job on this, and I appreciate you really thinking outside the box on trying to figure these out. I would like to point out that I participated in a City Navy discussion where they really looked at U.S. Navy inter-service agreements and intergovernment service agreements, and they're really trying to figure out ways, and especially in Commander Navy Region Southwest, which we are under, on ways that they can partner with our local communities to really do this. So there's an avenue, and they actually will help pay for it. So that's a great way to. You probably already have been thinking about it, but those intergovernment service agreements are really good, and that this would be a perfect example of one that we could link up. And right now, with our relationship that we do have with the Naval Base CO, NAB Coronado CO, it's a great time to really roll one of these out and try to get one done. So I appreciate it.
Chris, can you go to the inline picture? So if you look at the inline picture there, if you look what's going on there for the installation, it's pretty major. Looks very expensive. And we have one of those?
Yes.
We have one. What's the cost of something like that, like ballpark?
These days, probably 100,000, something about that size that we put in. This was a very big one on our main storm drain line that's on Imperial Beach Boulevard right at 10th. Ones that we will be putting in would be substantially smaller. And this is one that we put in about 12 years ago as well.
Really, 12 years ago. Yeah. It's super effective.
Still effective today.
Okay. It looks pretty impressive, the whole setup. And then
but these are the type of project the state likes to fund.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It has to be big enough for the state to fund. They don't fund the small ones.
Right.
So if we're going to do a project, if you throw something big and shiny at it, the state tends to fund those more.
Were you part of this one?
No, I was not.
You
before
were
my time.
Okay. How about the multi-benefit? This is a project I see all over town, like you mentioned. Can you name 3 or 4 places where somebody could see something like this?
You can go to the Public Works Yard. Is a good one. There's a bioswale there at the end of 10th Street. You can go to Bikeway Village, which is another good spot.
Right.
This one's right at the new development at 9th and Palm at Grocery Outlet. The other one. There's ones right at the estuary as well, right at the end of Caspian Way. So
yeah,
they're going in everywhere.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch we're going to be doing on Imperial Beach Boulevard. We're starting construction here, hopefully January.
Yeah, I see them everywhere, and they're very impressive. And when I drive in San Diego or some other places, sorry if my throat, I have a scratchy throat. Every now and then I'll see one and I know exactly what it is, but to the naked eye, people really don't realize what that is for, you know? So good job on that. Okay. Now I'm going to go into, pet waste bags. Thank you. Of course. Now I'm going to go into my, next thing, street sweeping. Go to your very first picture. Very first picture. And this is probably the 4th time, City Manager Hall, that I've brought this up. So on my street, if you had that much trash, the street sweeper goes by, you'd have half that trash. Like, it doesn't pick up all the trash, you know? And my big deal about the street sweeper, I think it's great that we have it. However, the excessive ticket price, here I go, is excessive. $50 ticket, you know, for a citizen. We talk about nickel and diming our citizens. I think this is a good example of it. The punishment doesn't fit the offense for somebody. I get a ticket for reading my calendar wrong. It's $50, and yeah, I'll write a check to the city of IB. But for other families, that's 4 or 5 meals, 6 meals. And I think we, like I said, 4th time talking about this, 5th time talking about this, I think we really need to look at, why are we charging $50 for somebody forgetting to move their car? It's street sweeping day. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks. First, thanks. Great job. Love the leadership. The city of Imperial Beach. You've taken regional and actually national leadership on these types of issues. Just first, we become a nation and a region and a city of litter bugs. I think that's more the issue. We need to be finding people who are throwing garbage in the streets. It's getting worse in IB. It's getting worse in San Diego. San Diego is covered in garbage. Our freeways are covered in garbage. And just when we put things in perspective, we can just go a few miles south of here and see it in one of the largest cities in Mexico that has no trash management, no stormwater management, no anything at all. And we're paying the price for it, which is why we're in federal court asking for the National Boundary and Water Commission to put the same type of infrastructure that Mr. Helmer and his team and we're paying for in our own city, in which the federal government has refused to install any latest updates on and dealing with trash. In fact, they've said it's not their job. So, I mean, that's why I just want to make sure the context. We're obeying the law in this city, and it costs us a lot of money, and our residents have to pay these fines because of our efforts to comply with the law. And yet our federal partners just a few miles south have decided that they don't have to play by the rules, that they're above the law. And that's something that is the crux of our case. Number 2, it's very clear that we are trying to be in compliance with these laws, but it seems to me the city of San Diego and especially the Caltrans, we met with the Caltrans director to express our concern about this and offered to help, right now is not concerned about complying with the law. The regional board is holding us to a different standard. And that's something I think we need to talk to Dave Gibson about, because, you know, we're spending a lot of effort on this, but frankly, I have never, and using the audience, maybe I'm 54. I've never seen more garbage on the highways and on the streets in my life than I have in today in 20 ever. Like, San Diego looks like a third world country. It looks like a third world city. In fact, I was in England this year. You don't see any trash anywhere. It's actually shocking, and it's shocking in our city that people have become, frankly, are pigs. They just throw trash everywhere. So, and you know, frankly, adding trash cans on the street doesn't help. The litter pigs basically just trash the city. So I want to thank you guys for your good help, but we need help on this. I mean, we've got definitely a litter bug problem. I think all the campaigns that we grew up with and the encouragement we had not to throw litter, people don't care anymore. So something I'm concerned about. We've got to really work with our partners, and we've talked with Caltrans having a regional effort to really deal with this trash issue. Mr. Hall, they think a lot of it has to do with, on the trash we see surrounding IB, is a lot to do with trucks that are coming from the dump, including EDCO. So we need to follow up with EDCO on that. And the CHP has to do a lot more to enforce those litter laws. Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, I was wondering, can we have a clean city campaign? Can we get some signs going? Can we really say, hey, listen, we have a problem in our city. Let's be clean.
Yeah, so, thanks to Mr. West, we've been doing that, the cleanups, but I think what we're talking about is, doing a larger Don't Trash San Diego campaign with the county, with Caltrans, with our state partners. So I agree. I think, but IB can't do it alone. But frankly, we just need, hopefully with new representation in District 8 in San Diego, we can do a lot more. I filed a complaint in the city of San Diego. I saw so much trash on private property. I was shocked. It looked like a garbage dump. It was a parking lot in the city of San Diego. So,
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we should, I understand what you're saying. It's got to be regional, indeed. And I remember there used to be signs on the interstates all the time about littering and fines, and you could get a ticket for that. We've talked about this before, and I think we could do more in Imperial Beach.
I agree.
And we've talked about, the culture in Imperial Beach, and, us wanting to be, an environmentally great place and a visitor serving place and healthy place for our residents. It all fits together, including, picking up after your pets and trash and clearing out for the sweepers, et cetera, and better sweepers that get 100% or 90% or 80%, not 50. But there are nonprofits, it seems to me, and I can't name any off the top of my head, but it may be possible for us to partner with a nonprofit or two or three that are really into this and have Imperial Beach as kind of a pilot case for a public campaign, some culture change regarding this sort of thing. It would have to be sustained over a period of time to have effect. And we would need to probably also adopt an ordinance that might increase the fines at the same time, so that there's both a carrot and a stick. But we shouldn't give up on changing our own culture in Imperial Beach.
Right.
So that this town at least is a cut above, like we are in so many other ways. We're not along with everybody else. We're better, and we ought to try to continue to be better.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
I totally agree, and I invite all of our public, and I invite you to come out. I have been working with I Love It Clean San Diego to develop a some type of don't be a litter bug type of campaign. So we're actually, we can come up with a slogan, and I've been thinking about it, and the mayor and I talked a little bit about that, and I completely agree and want to do something where we're not just the Clean Cities initiative that we started 2 years ago has been very effective about removing a lot of trash. I mean, we've done really good job, and cigarette butts as well. But
you have done a great job.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
But we need, we want where we don't have to do that, where our city is, our people are involved enough and want to keep our city to where, it's cigarette butts. It's all those things that are just trashing our city and we're, the goal of always is to try to get the trash before it gets to the beach. That's the main thing. And that's what we talked about. So I think that I'm a little hesitant that I am less, I hope that Mr. Benz from Caltrans comes up with something that has a regional, but in the meantime, we're not going to wait. I'm going to work with Sandy.
We have to push. We have to push on them.
Oh, I know.
And we've got to involve our county partners and our assembly member and state senate partners and everybody, because it's not, I think everyone's a little overwhelmed by the amount of garbage they're saying.
We talked
about San Diego as well. It's actually, to me, it's shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, you see garbage piled up on the highways and in streets in San Diego. I've never seen anything like that.
And when we talk about it, when we talk about it, every elected official and every person says the same thing. They all agree, but nobody's coming up with that plan. So we got to push. So I think I implore all of all of us to work together to get some.
All for one, one for all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, thanks, Mr. Helmer. We digressed a little bit, but it's only because Ivy is doing such a great job, and we really respect the work you and your team are doing in Public Works and our Highlands crew.
Yeah.
And more importantly, again, this is the reason why we're in federal court, asking for the federal government to abide by the same laws as we have to. And number two, that we're pushing the government of Mexico to make sure that they don't just dump garbage and sewage and toxic waste on us. And then that we pay to clean up. So anyway, with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2018-7986. Please vote.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote.
You did. You just do it.
Motion carried unanimously by those present, Bragg absent.
The regular meeting is adjourned.